Now we're on Chapter 10, Lesson 4, Multi-Step Measurement Problems. As you can see, these ones are all going to be word problems. But the greatest difference between these ones and ones that we've done in the past is that there's going to be an extra step of converting. It's very imperative that you look, imperative meaning important, at the units. For instance, if they're telling you that you're measuring in ounces and they want the final answer to be in pounds, you're going to have to convert the ounces into pounds, and likewise. So labeling every step of the process is going to be key. That being said, to do this one, you're going to be needing your notes that you've been taking throughout each lesson, so lesson 1, 2, and 3, because they're going to be asking you to convert different measurements. So I'm going to have this conversion handy while we read number 1. A cable company has 5 miles of cable to install. How many 100-yard lengths of cable can be cut? So let's start with a picture box. Now, a cable company has 5 miles of cable to install. How many 100-yard lengths of cable can be cut? What they're saying here is there's a total amount of something, of cable, and what they're going to do is they're going to cut it into pieces, and they want to figure out how many pieces they have. So, how much, do you know a total? Do you know the total length of the cable? Yes, it says a company has 5 miles of cable. So that's the total amount. You have 5 miles of cable. And what you'll be doing with that cable is you're going to be cutting them to 100-yard lengths. So piece 1 is going to be 100 yards. Piece 2 is going to be 100 yards. The thing is, you don't know how many pieces there are. That's what you're trying to figure out. That's your question mark. But you know that each one is 100 yards. Now, we usually see this, and we have a total on top. That's our dividend. And we're cutting into smaller pieces. So if we have a total and we're cutting it, the thing is getting smaller, and by the same number, 100, 100, 100. Repeated subtraction is division. So normally we would do 5 divided by 100. And we learned how to do that. It's not impossible to do 5 divided by 100. You'll just have a fraction or a decimal. The thing is, we can't do it quite yet because this is 5 miles and that's 100 yards. So the first step that we need to do before doing our dividend divided by our, our dividend divided by our divisor is we need to convert the 5 miles into yards. Once we convert it into yards, then we could divide these two. So our first step, 5 miles equals how many yards? So once we set up the equation, 5 miles is the amount of cable they have. They're cutting it into pieces of 100, and you want to find out how many pieces there are. We've done this kind of setup before. We can't simply do 5 divided by 100 because 1 is miles and 1 is yards. First step is change the 5 miles into yards. Here's where your cheat sheet comes in handy, and we're going to be looking for miles and yards. So you can see here 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. So this is going to be miles and yards, miles and yards. 1 mile, 1,760 yards. How do you get from 1 to 1,760? Well, it's getting bigger, so you're going to multiply by 1,760. Now this looks just like what we were doing for lessons 1, 2, and 3. From here, you do 5 miles times 1,760 to find the amount of yards. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, regroup the 3. 5 times 7 is 35, 36, 37, 38 when you add that. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. And so you have 8,880 yards. So the amount of cable that you have is 5 miles, And 5 miles is equivalent to 8,880 yards. So now, because this is yards and yards, now you're able to divide your dividend, your total amount of cable, the 8,880, by the 100. Now, normally you could put it inside the house, but since we're dividing by a power of 10, we could just say division gets smaller, so we're going to the left, and we're going to the left 2 times, because this is a power of 10. And when there's no decimal, then it's at the end, because this is the ones value and the decimal's right after the ones. And you move it 2 times to the left, and so your new decimal's right here, making the answer 88. And so if you're to have 8,800 yards and you're to subtract 100, cut it again 100, 100, you'll be able to have 88 pieces of yards that are 100 yards each. So have 88 pieces. So you could see here 88 lengths or 88 pieces. Okay, I hope that helped. Afton made a chicken dish for dinner. She added a 10-ounce package of vegetables and a 14-ounce package of rice to 40 ounces of chicken. What was the total weight of the chicken dish in pounds? So here we're going to draw another picture box. And we're going to ask ourselves, do we know a total? Well, let's figure out what's going on in this story. So there's this girl who made a chicken dish, and she's adding all these different things. She's adding vegetables, she's adding rice, and she has a chicken. And all together, they're trying to find the total weight of the chicken dish in pounds. So when it comes to the total, we don't know the total. So your X is the total weight of this whole chicken dish that she created. So we're trying to find the total weight in pounds. Because the question was asking for pounds, and they're asking for the total weight, and that's something you don't know. That's what we'll find out. Now, what we do know is that this dish is comprised of 3 things. She has vegetables. What else does she have in her dish? She has rice. And she has the main dish, which is the chicken. So this dish is comprised of vegetables, rice, and chicken. And if you were to add all those together, the vegetable and the rice and the chicken, you have the total weight. So in each of the boxes, you're going to put how much each of them weigh. The vegetables is 10 ounces. And keep in mind, you have to label. The rice is 14 ounces. And the chicken is the heaviest at 40 ounces. Now, if we know that the vegetables is 10 ounces, rice is 14 ounces, and the chicken is 40 ounces, they're getting bigger. Because if we're doing this and we're adding more to it and we're adding more, it's getting larger. And since the number isn't repeating, it's not like 10, 10, 10, 14, 14, 14, 40, 40, 40, we're going to add them together, not multiply. And so when we add them together, we will get 4, 5, 6, 64 ounces. Now that's the total ounces, 64 ounces altogether. But keep in mind that the question is asking for pounds. The question is asking for what's the total weight in pounds. So 64 ounces is the total weight. The last step, though, is the conversion to how many pounds that equals. And keep in mind that pounds is LB. Pounds. And so we can use our cheat sheet from lessons 1, 2, and 3. And we find that here are the ounces in pounds. 1 pound equals 16 ounces. So 16 ounces equal 1 pound. I'm going to put the 1 pound on top of the pound. 1 pound will go on top of the 1 pound. Then 1 pound equals 16 ounces. The 16 ounces will go on top of the 64 ounces. So look at how I use this cheat sheet. 1 pound equals 16 ounces. That's what I put on here. 1 pound equals 16 ounces. But it's important that you match the ounces with the ounces and the pound with the pound. So instead of it being 1 pound equals 16 ounces, it's 16 ounces equals 1 pound, because we're matching them. That being said, how do we get from 16 to 1? We're getting smaller, so we divide by 16. And that's how we're going to find 64 ounces. 64 ounces divided by 16 will tell you how many pounds it is. And for this one, I'm going to put inside the house. If you don't memorize your 16s, then you could do it on the side. You could do 16 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18. 3, 4. That doesn't get too close to 64, so you could try another number. And you could see that that exactly hit 64. If this was less than 64, then I could do 16 times 5, but it was exactly 64, which makes me happy because there's no remainders, even though sometimes I enjoy figuring out what the remainder means. So 64 ounces equals 4 pounds. So 64 ounces equals 4 pounds, and that's our final answer. If you were to add the 10 ounces plus the 14 ounces plus the 40 ounces, you'll get 64 ounces. And 64 ounces is equivalent to 4 pounds. So our final answer is 4 pounds. Or 4 pounds. Now, for all of these, just make sure that you're drawing picture boxes, as well as you're making sure to convert things into the units that they want. So for the instance, this one, they had miles and yards, so you had to convert the miles into yards. This one, they had everything in ounces and they wanted in pounds. So just make sure to read the directions. All right, good luck. Although I won't be solving number 7 and 8, I will be giving you like a little bit of a nudge to get you going. So my main goal is to help set up the problem by drawing out the picture. And from there, hopefully you can find the answer. A pitcher contains 40 fluid ounces of iced tea. Shelby, which is the name, Shelby pours 3 cups of iced tea. How many pints of iced tea are left in the pitcher? Ooh, all right. So we have this iced tea, and there's a total amount inside, and someone is going to pour some iced tea out, and then you're going to have leftover. So think about what that picture is going to look like. First question you're going to ask yourself is there a total amount of iced tea? Yes. There's a picture that contains 40 fluid ounces altogether. So you have 40 fluid ounces of iced tea. Now what are you doing with that iced tea? You're pouring some. Now this one isn't pouring 3 cups as in here's cup 1, here's cup 2, here's cup 3, because the next one is how many pints of iced tea are left. And so you really only have 2 categories. You have how much she poured, and you have how much she has left. I'm going to guess that Shelby is a girl name, although there might be some boys who are named Shelby, but there's no he or she in here to identify it for this particular problem. How much is left? So you have a 40 fluid ounce pitcher of iced tea. She's pouring some, and she has some left over. She pours 3 cups, and what she has left over is here. This is what you don't know. But you do want the answer to be in pints, because it says how many pints are left. Now, this is one of the trickier ones, because look, you have 3 different things. You have fluid ounces, you have cups, and you have pints. Because the final answer has to be in pints, I would recommend that you change 40 fluid ounces into pints, and that you change 3 cups into pints. That way, all of your answer will be eventually in pints. What I'm going to have you do is figure out what you're going to do with the 40 fluid ounces, which you have to change into pints. 40 fluid ounces equals blank pints. And then change your 3 cups into pints equals blank pints. What are you going to do to this amount of pints when you change 40 fluid ounces? And what are you going to do to this amount of pints when you change to 3 cups? And that will be your answer. So hopefully that this helped you. If not, you could ask me questions in class.